All right, so Notre Dame's going to have I don't remember the exact number, Mike. You have it up on our kind of live official visit tracker for June. I think it's what 20 or so players who are scheduled to be on there and on campus. But let's dive into the ones we're kind of watching the most, or we kind of feel are the most important here. And Mike and I each came up with our a list of 5 guys who we think are the most important visitors. Left the criteria up to ourselves, but at least for me, and I know Mike kind of did the same thing. It would be pretty boring if we just said, "All right, here's the highest rated guys who are visiting," and just took the 5 highest rated ones and did that. And like, no, like we tried to actually, you know, flush these out into all right, where this kid's recruitment stands, or 5 that could really swing the deal. So I don't know, Mike. You want to just dive into this? Want me to go first?
Yeah, let's get into Patrick's first, and then we'll go to mine. And our lists are actually pretty different, so that's exciting to me. Joe Brunner, so he's one of what 3 or 4 offensive tackle recruits that will be on campus this June. So interesting one, number 9 offensive tackle in the country, number 58 overall player in the country, Joe Brunner. A lot of people consider him a Wisconsin lean from Whitefish Bay. Joe Brunner, one of your 5 biggest, most important visitors for June. Why don't you tell us why you have Joe Brunner on there, Patrick?
Yeah, I just think it's kind of one of those where, I mean, as you've reported, and a lot of what I base this on, of course, is all of your reporting and prior uh, discussions on here and on our board. Where I mean, you're the one who goes in the day to day and talks to these guys, but I kind of look at this as all right. You have a chance to get a top 100 tackle. Notre Dame's in here with what 2 or 3 others here. What is Wisconsin? Ohio State, I believe, is what you said.
That's about
Unless
it,
I'm
yeah.
confusing you with one of the other highly regarded Wisconsin linemen. But no, a chance to get another top 100 player at tackle, and one who it just kind of seems like visits are going to be really key in this one in particular. I know he's been pretty quiet without not wanting to say too much and or doing many interviews, but this kind of seems like one that can really be swung by visits. And if he's going to consider leaving the state and not playing for Wisconsin, which of course home state school with a great trajectory or track record of putting linemen in the pros and developing guys, this visit's probably Notre Dame's best chance to make an impression on it. So between just the pure meaning of the visit in this recruitment and Brunner himself, I think he's one of the 5 most important. And by the way, these aren't in any particular order of like 5 to 1. We're just going to read these alphabetically for you. But yeah, Joe Brunner, I think would be a big and not completely pie in the sky possibility to add to Notre Dame's class here.
The crazy thing about Notre Dame's pursuit of these Wisconsin offensive linemen, you got Brunner, Carson Hinsman, and Billy Schrauth, latter 2 being more interior guys, is Notre Dame, and please, someone correct me. I've been saying this for like a year now. Someone correct me if this is not correct. And I haven't had anyone step up to say it otherwise. The last player, not just last offensive lineman to sign from the state of Wisconsin with Notre Dame, just the last player in general from the Badger State to sign with the Irish, Brian, and I apologize if I'm not pronouncing this last name correctly, Brian Bedash was a defensive lineman, I believe, signed with the Irish in the 2001 class. That still just blows my mind. I remember, writing a story on this last summer, and I call up the late Lou Emoji, and I say, hey, like, does Notre Dame not have any players on their roster from Wisconsin? He's like, no, and gosh, I can't remember the last time they did sign a player from Wisconsin, so we had to go back and 2001 class. So that, I mean, Patrick, does that blow your mind too? It's 2 states away. I mean, Milwaukee's what, like 3 hours, 3.5, 4 hours from South Bend, and they just don't get players from there.
Yeah, it's weird in that I know, like, all right, Wisconsin isn't like this state that's stacked with Notre Dame level players every year, but there's enough of them. Like, there's like enough meaningful ones that they've targeted in the past. And yeah, I mean, it's a Midwest state in the close geographic footprint. They haven't signed a kid from there since I was in kindergarten. I mean, I think it's been
Yeah,
that long ago. I don't remember what grade I was in.
yeah.
Yeah. No, it's pretty crazy.
It's got to speak to Wisconsin just having a lockdown on there too, and
Yes.
Notre Dame just doesn't recruit a ton in there. I think they'll offer typically like 3 or 4 guys a cycle, if not less. But yeah, moving along, a player from a totally different geographical footprint, Anthony Lucas, Scottsdale, Arizona, 4-star defensive end, 6'5", 285. So he would be like a big end, like Myron Tagovailoa Mosa, if not a interior player, more likely a guy who would play both, to be honest with you, kind of like MTA. So Anthony Lucas, definitely a big one. Locked in. All these guys are locked in to visit Notre Dame in June. Details on the dates and whatnot at blueandgold.com. So tell us about Anthony Lucas.
Yeah, I looked at this one just as far as, all right, where's defensive tackle kind of stand? And I think if you don't get him, you're looking at, all right, maybe perhaps Donovan Hinish is the only one in there. And I think he's a worthwhile add. But which when you look at, all right, being able to add someone like Lucas into that, and then what the class might look at him perhaps without him in there. I think he's just kind of a crucial piece for the class in general, just given the position and where the rest of that board is at. And again, seems like one where Notre Dame could perhaps, I don't want to say seal the deal, but push him to further leaning toward Notre Dame. We think Notre Dame's in a pretty good spot, Mike, I believe is
Yep.
what you said. So
Yep.
this one seems like it's somewhere in between a visit that swings the recruitment or a visit that pushes him further toward perhaps thinking about committing. So yeah, I mean, between those two kind of things, big visitor here to a position of need, a position that can really affect the outlook and the ceiling of the defensive line class, and a big visit for Notre Dame's chances in the recruitment.
I like it. Moving along, Gavin Sawchuck, number 2 running back in the country, number 44 overall player in America per Rivals, Highlands Ranch, Colorado Valor Christian High School, where Christian McCaffrey went to high school, of course. Christian McCaffrey playing for Lance Taylor at Stanford, and then at the Carolina Panthers, they were reunited. And now Lance Taylor, of course, with Notre Dame, recruiting another Valor Christian player. So solid choice here. Tell us about Gavin Sawchuck.
I really think you can kind of substitute any one of those big 3 running backs here that we've talked about ad nauseum on prior episodes of this. Of course, there too being Nicholas Singleton and Dallin Hayden. But I went with Sawchuck just in the sense that, all right, this seems, not like he's heavy, obvious, leaning one way from what you've reported, Mike. And just a chance to make an outer region kid with, he's not like one who's not predisposed to see Notre Dame as like to go there, but, and obviously because of the Catholic school background, and I'm sure he's had some understanding of who Lance Taylor is, given the relationship with Christian McCaffrey, but still someone out of the region who's a national recruit per se, who's I think still able to be swung potentially. So I went with him here, and just in the fact that Notre Dame's best chance to make a move with a top 50 player who, again, I know there's a future caster in with Oklahoma, but from what you reported, it's not like this is, signed, sealed, and delivered unofficially to Oklahoma, and everybody's just wasting their time here. So I went there. I think you can very easily put in, say, Nicholas Singleton, perhaps in this role, and you can kind of say the same thing of, all right, that visits for him are going to be a big thing. Sounds like they will be for Gavin Sawchuck too. I went with him. Just again, a chance to get someone out of the area who, yes, Catholic school, understanding of Lance Taylor aside, not exactly going to be one of those, East Coast Catholic school kids who you offer, and it's just like, oh yeah, they're, naturally attracted to Notre Dame before they even offered. So yeah, I look at that as just an important visit for where his recruitment is going to go.
Yeah, good stuff. I do have a running back in my top 5. I'm not going to reveal it. So I know Patrick's top 5. He does not know my top 5 at this point as we are recording this. And we will compare at the end here. Jalen Sneed, one of those midweek visitors. Number 63 overall player in the country. Number 8 outside linebacker. Future casts are in for Notre Dame. 6'2", 210. Really good-looking linebacker prospect. He dominated at the Atlanta Rivals camp. I mean, a linebacker who was mainly a rush end this past season, and he's out there locking down slot receivers and tight ends and whatnot. A really good player. This is a really good pick. I mean, I would imagine the thought here is if this visit goes well, Notre Dame's going to lock in like one of the best players in the country, honestly.
Yeah, I put him on here for two reasons. One, a chance that this visit again could be something that locks in Jalen Snead. Like, all right, he comes out of here wanting to commit and does that at some point in time afterwards, perhaps not too long afterwards. And then second being, I think he's like the definite, profile of a kid where you hear Marcus Freeman talk about like, we want to get the kind of kids who aren't predisposed to come here. You have to make them see why Notre Dame isn't just another school because they initially thought it was another school. And yeah, Jalen in the sense of, yeah, not from the area, not from a Catholic school or anything. And Notre Dame has recruited South Carolina, but not as much as say Georgia or Florida in previous cycles and whatnot. And definitely going back to the part of for a minute closing the deal, we've heard a lot about how his mom likes Notre Dame. He's open to leaving the area. Notre Dame was the first visit. He said it just seems like everything has really gone Notre Dame's way so far, and this visit can kind of push that over the edge. And of course, again, we talk about getting guys who aren't predisposed to like Notre Dame. You want to do that, just you want to push up in the rankings, and you have Marcus Freeman as the main recruiter with Snead here. So the chance to have your best recruiter do one of the things that he's kind of set out to do. So yeah, I look at this as, and of course he's a top 100 linebacker, high impact potential player here. Yeah, midweek visit, he's going to be the one to pay attention to there.
So going in alphabetical order, last but certainly not least, is actually the highest ranked of this group. CJ Williams, modern day, arguably like the best football school in the entire country out there in Southern California, number 27 overall player, number 3 receiver. Notre Dame, Ohio State, Texas, USC seem to be the 4 schools battling the most. Don't count out Alabama, don't count out LSU, but I mean, I don't think we need to spend much time on talking about CJ Williams. This one's pretty obvious, right?
Yeah, it's high position of need where you just want to stockpile as many guys as possible and highly rated guys like CJ. Visits that are going to play a big part in the recruitment like they seem to, like they will with Williams. And yeah, just his status is what he is as a recruit. And yeah, just wanting to, be able to get some guys from the West Coast. Yeah, I think when you look at those 3 things, yes, it's just kind of a combination of all of them as to why that's a huge visit for Notre Dame. Just get an impact player, highly ranked player at a big position if need. Visit that might swing the recruitments, or all 4 visits, I guess, if he visits all 4 of those places. And yeah, you want to be able to get as many of those guys in there as you can at receiver in particular. After I know
don't say it. Don't say it. That. We can't. Jordan Johnson's name is going to be like the new Will Shipley on Pod Like a Champion. Like it's just like the one who can't be named. Like anytime we talk about CJ Williams, it's like borderline. Like I think CJ Williams is probably going to end up a 5-star receiver. And it's like, when's the last time Notre Dame got a 5-star receiver? So we will invoke Jordan Johnson's name just as much as Will Shipley. So we'll get into my 5 in just a moment. And a quick reminder on Patrick's: offensive lineman Joe Brunner, defensive lineman Anthony Lucas, talented running back Gavin Sawchuck, the outstanding Jalen Snead at linebacker, receiver CJ Williams. This show is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below the waist grooming. Love Manscaped. I know you guys love hearing these ad reads about Manscaped as well. Manscaped offers precision engineered tools for your family jewels. They obsess over their technology developments to provide you the best tools for your grooming experience. Manscaped is trusted by over 2 million men worldwide. Patrick, Engel, and Mike Singer are included in that 2 million. We have an exclusive offer for Blue and Gold podcast and video listeners / watchers, viewers. I don't know what the right word is there. 20% off plus free shipping using the promo code 20BlueGold. Again, that's 20BlueGold. The package for our YouTube audience that you see up on the screen, that's what I got from Manscaped. Shaving guards, the lawnmower 3.0, ball toner, ball deodorant, all this stuff that you would never even think of as a thing until you actually try it and you're like, whoa, this is amazing. I'm actually wearing the Manscaped underwear right now, and I kind of don't want to change underwear. I just want to wear this, but I don't think I can wear underwear for like 3 days in a row. The really cool thing about the lawnmower 3.0, it's waterproof. Like, you can use that thing in the shower, protect your family jewels, and you don't want to use the same trimmer on your face, as below the waist. So you guys listening, use that promo code 20BlueGold. Go get you some new underwear, really good form-fitting boxer briefs, and the lawnmower 3.0.
All right, Mike. Here's what the people really want. Your top 5 visitors. Let's hear them.
Yeah, so I'm going to go with Tobias Merriweather. Like, your 5, when you sent that to me, I was like, man, I might just go with that same 5. And then I started digging, and mine was really like top targets plus, like, if this visit goes well, I think they'll commit. Like, there's a good chance. Yep. Tobias Merriweather, I can really see that happening. He's locked in to officially visit. I believe it's June 11th. One interesting thing is here, Stanford's another top school for him. I'm not sure Stanford's having official visitors in June. So that's really interesting, and like sucks for them, like on the recruiting front. I mean, good luck for a lot of these kids who want to announce before the start of their senior season. Like, July is supposed to be dead. August is supposed to be dead for recruiting. Like, how are they supposed to get these kids on campus if they want to decide by September? So Tobias Merriweather, I hear he's a Notre Dame lean, considering a future cast pick in for him. Number 160 overall player in the country, number 18 wide receiver. So I like Notre Dame for Tobias Merriweather. I feel like if his visit goes well, Notre Dame goes out and gets, I mean, you could even argue he's an undervalued receiver, even as a 4-star and 160 overall player in the country. Since Patrick doesn't know who my guys are here, I'm just going to transition into the next ones. I've got Devin Moore. He's a 3-star. He's the only 3-star on this entire list. And I thought about going with Benjamin Morrison from, I believe it's Brophy Prep. I don't know, that's a tongue twister, out in Phoenix. He's a 4-star, so he's a little bit more sexy in that sense. Moore's a 3-star, but I don't know. I respect the Rivals evaluators, but I don't see a 3-star ranking on Devin Moore. I'm actually going to see him in person on Wednesday, so make sure you check out blueandgold.com for more information on how that visit went. But again, if this visit goes well, I think he's in the class. Florida's in the mix. Alabama's in the mix. I mean, those are 2 really good DB schools, and this is a kid in the state of Florida. Notre Dame's been recruiting him. I believe it was like this week last year, the Fighting Irish offered him Terry Joseph, and I never felt like he was going to leave the state of Florida, and if he was, it would be for Alabama. But Notre Dame has really done a nice job in this recruitment. This is a big-time player. Again, when you talk about Florida and Alabama's on his offer list, I mean, if you talk about DBU, it's Alabama, LSU, and Florida. And Ohio State. So you got 2 of those schools after you, like big-time player. Naples is a big-time school. So that would be a really good get for Notre Dame. Here's my running back, Nicholas Singleton. I put Gavin Sawchuck as the running back in my mock class I did last week in the Gold Standard at blueandgold.com. It's a toss-up. Dallin Hayden, Singleton, Sawchuck. I'm going to go with Singleton, though, because he's earlier in June. Like, if that official visit goes well, just lock him up. Boom. There you go. So that's why I'm going with Singleton. Again, it's pretty much a coin flip. You got Singleton. It looks like a Notre Dame Penn State battle. Then you got Sawchuck, Notre Dame Oklahoma battle. Dallin Hayden, who Notre Dame will bring in first, is looking like a Notre Dame Ohio State battle. So Notre Dame is like in these unofficial final 2s for all these guys, but could finish second in all of them, and then they'd have to move to different targets. But for those who follow running back recruiting, don't be discouraged. I mean, you know what? You can be discouraged. You do whatever the heck you want. But if I'm a Notre Dame fan and they strike out on the big 3, I'm not upset because you already got Jadarian Price and Damari Alston. And if Notre Dame gets him as the second back, he's got like 50 offers and is a really highly ranked, talented back as well. So Number 4 for me is Nuafe Jr. Tui Halamaka, the nation's top inside linebacker. For me, it was like him or Sneed. I even consider putting both. I don't have Jalen Sneed in my top 5. We'll touch on that. But if this one goes well, I think it's done. He's going to visit June 11th. He's supposed to announce his commitment June 18th. And if he does, it's got to be Notre Dame. If he doesn't, then he's going to take an official visit to Texas that weekend. So if this visit goes well, I think he's in Notre Dame's class. I put in a future cast pick in for him to land at Notre Dame a while ago. He feels like he can go in and be Manti Te'o 2.0. Like, he was a big Te'o fan growing up. And Brian Polian's done a nice job recruiting Nuafe. And, of course, Polian recruited Manti Te'o, 12 years ago. So, like where Notre Dame's at in this recruitment a lot. Stanford and Texas, USC was the school he was formerly committed to. And those other 2 schools are in pursuit of him. So if that visit goes well, I feel like Notre Dame will land him another top 100 player. And my last guy, I mean, come on, CJ Williams, number 3 receiver in the country, number 2 player in California. You lose Jordan Johnson and you go out and get a player, to me, is similar than Johnson. I've talked about this, Patrick. Like, Johnson, when I went and saw him in person, which it was twice, at the Rivals 5-Star Challenge, when we ran a 4.740 on the laser, and I was like, whoa. So at that point, I never thought of him as a burner. After I saw that, and I saw him run, I was like, this dude is ultra talented and a damn good possession receiver, but I never saw him as like a Julio Jones, Calvin Johnson, like that kind of big body, just freak 5-star receiver. I saw him as an elite level possession receiver. CJ Williams is that to me, but I think he's more polished of a football player than Jordan Johnson was at the high school level. I think CJ Williams is an incredible fit for Notre Dame in the locker room as well. Academic profile. I mean, just everything about CJ Williams fits Notre Dame perfectly. 50 offers too, this is just a kid that everyone wants. And yeah, as far as his recruitment, Patrick, if his official visit goes really well, I could see him committing, and that would be his only official visit. He was going to take some more in June. Track season kind of messed that up. I had more details about that last week in a premium article at blueandgold.com. So our podcast and YouTube folk are getting that little nugget there for free. But he does plan to take some officials in the fall. So if this Notre Dame visit goes really well, that might be his only. I could see him just being like, I'm done. This is my school. And then, Texas and Ohio State and Bama don't get visits. So some good stuff there. So yeah, let's pop on our 5. So again, Patrick had Brunner, Lucas, Sawchuck, Sneed, and Williams. I've got Tobias Merriweather, the 4-star receiver, Devin Moore. You could put a slash there, Benjamin Morrison. I just really think it's important for Notre Dame to go get another high level. You shaking your head, Patrick?
No waffling. You picked Devin Moore.
I picked Devin Moore. Go get a stud Florida kid. That's the guy I'm going with. I don't care if he's a 3-star. Nick Singleton, running back. Nuafe Tui Halamaka, inside linebacker, and CJ Williams. That's the one me and Patrick agree on. Or I should say we have in our lists, but I could see Patrick's list is great. There's you really can't go wrong here. So, what do you think about my list, Patrick? I'll let you speak now after me rambling for 5 minutes.
Yeah, I like that we took different approaches, and that I think there's just a lot of different ways where you can define, important visitors of theoretically, yeah, one way to say is, all right, these guys are closer to committing / further leaning toward Notre Dame, or anyway leaning toward Notre Dame, I guess. And it's do a good job on the visit, and you just might land them soon after. Yeah, sure. I think those are all pretty important. I wanted to kind of do a mix of that and guys who would be impact lands on the trail, well regarded, and who might be, okay, visits are a big thing in the recruitment, and here's Notre Dame's best chance to, take the best swing and try to connect on a homer, basically. Yeah. And I think I tried to mix all of those in there. I think CJ kind of fits both of those pretty well, if not the best. Where Junior, I didn't necessarily consider him, but it's a very valid thing of, all right, just don't screw this up, and you think there's a
Sure.
pretty good chance, and that's
Sure.
still important though.
I
Yeah,
think it's
you
the
don't.
same for Snead. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
Snead, like both Notre Dame seems like with both of those linebackers, it's like bring them in, don't mess it up, and you'll get them. That's at least how I feel.
yeah. I think we can, kind of put sort of those two are interchangeable. I guess I thought with Snead, just what he represents and sort of the profile and the area and whatnot. Like, yeah, kid who theoretically would have seen Notre Dame as just some other random school. What it means for landing someone like that,
Sure.
but before I'm sure there's some people who were shouting at us while watching us on
Oh
YouTube or
yeah.
listening to podcasts like where's Zach Rice or whatnot, and it's all right. It's not like he's not an important visitor or that any of these visits aren't important where they can afford to just say if he has a mediocre time who cares, like no. But again, it would have been just kind of easy and an aimless exercise for us to just play, all right, here's the 5 highest rated, where it's Zach Rice, it's like, all right, pie in the sky dream, do the best you can and just hope that it moves the needle.
Yeah.
That's that is like something. It's noteworthy. I don't know that I'd call it most important
Yeah.
per se.
The one on your list that I mean, CJ Williams, we both have. We both have an inside linebacker. We both have a running back. I mean, Anthony Lucas is a great choice. I went Devin Moore because I felt like it was a little like in Tobias Merriweather, like Notre Dame needs those outside talents. The reason I didn't go with an offensive lineman is just because like I'm just not worried about Notre Dame offensive line recruiting, whether it's Brunner, Hinsman, Schrouth, Wagner, Jake Taylor. They're going to get a fine offensive line class. Like I'm just not worried about offensive line at all. That's why I didn't go but receiver. I mean, yeah. I mean, like Notre Dame is doing fine in the trenches against Alabama and Clemson, but out wide and at quarterback. That's the thing, man. Not to get on too much of a tangent, but like quarterback, when you have a really darn good quarterback, that just can mask so many other deficiencies. Like with Ian Book, I felt like he was a really good football player, but you need really talented players around him to build him up rather than having a really darn good quarterback to build up the players around him. Or you have someone like Mac Jones, who's really good and he just has really good players around him as well. So it's kind of like a perfect storm, but that's my mini rant on the quarterback position. I was a big Ian Book guy. I think I'm a little bit less of a big Ian Book guy as time has gone on. I don't know, but
Well, there's a reason that both of us had, the receiver who's the top 30 player in the country on there, and it kind of points to what you said, and why each of us had a running back on there who's in that, say, big 3 group. And yeah, like you mentioned, if Notre Dame doesn't hit on one of those big 3, I think the floor is still
hi,
fairly high, but those are the ones who they've focused on, and it would be a little disappointing. I would understand fans' disappointment if
sure,
none of those 3 ended up in Notre Dame. And with Brunner, I just went, ceiling as far as what it would mean to get another top 100 lineman, strengthen a strength, continue to make sure that you know ceiling remains high on the offensive line as well as the floor staying there. But yes, I think you're right in that. All right, let's say Joe Brunner comes off his official visits to all 3 of the contenders or however many he ends up taking and says, okay, I definitely want to go to this place over Notre Dame, and that's what happens. Yeah, I think the hit factor is a little bit less just because of, yeah, again, the floor of the offensive line class still feels pretty high where you think about some of the other options left there on the board and what they already have on the offensive line class. But yeah, I just went with overall ceiling there.